KLTV sound check, KLTV sound check.
Good morning, everyone. So, good morning, everyone. It turns out we have an echo problem, but we don't know.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. It's not only an echo problem, it's delayed.
My goodness. Oh, well.
Only by a couple minutes.
You know, if you have a speech problem, there is a technique called audio delayed feedback. I've tried it. It sort of works sometimes. In other words, it's not that useful overall.
Simply accepting a motion to approve all matters before the
We
commission.
could do that. Commissioner Dahl is on vacation. He'll be on vacation today and tomorrow also. So I am now as the vice chair, I'm your chair. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to start off our Tuesday morning meeting?
With allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So today we have a fairly light schedule, so I hope for some good positive public participation. At the moment, let me turn it over to Commissioner Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have had an opportunity to review the minutes of our meetings from last week, and they appear to be in order and accurately describe the discussions that we have. And I move the approval of the minutes as submitted.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. Any comments, questions? I see none over the net either. I call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye also. The motion does pass.
Thank you. On today's consent agenda, we have a call for bids for the headquarters landfill transportation of rock materials. And that meeting will be scheduled for June 26th of this year at 1:30. That is a request for bids on the delivery of some 110,550 tons of rock and gravel. That's all needed for the construction of cells in the landfill as we continue to develop landfills for the receipt of various types of garbage that are sent there. Drainage is important in landfills. We have to try to capture as much of the rainwater from on top. And as the leachate, as material decays, it creates, for lack of a better term, stinky water that has to be treated. And so that's separated, and then drainage is facilitated by the use of the gravel, among other layers of soils. So that'll happen on June 26th. Under our agreements, contracts, and bid awards, we have a proposed supplemental agreement number 2 for Columbia West Engineering for materials testing. And that's merely to extend the expiration date of that project because they're continuing to work on a project that has yet to be completed. And it just simply extends the deadline to the end of this month. No change in the costs. Next, we have recorded temporary possession, and we have a temporary possession and use agreement with Christina Schneebly-Dills for a portion of the right-of-way on the improvements of South Cloverdale Road. We have a major realignment project trying to straighten it out and widen it, including space on the shoulders for bike lanes. And that requires some acquisition of right-of-way. And so this helps provide us with a temporary easement as part of that project. Our next item is a contract amendment number 3 with the Washington State Healthcare Authority to extend the contract of the use of medication for opioid use for our guests at the county jail. We've discovered that it is important to maintain their medications if they're on medications for opioid addiction when they're in jail, because they don't have access to their doctors and we have to provide the health care. And rather than have them go through withdrawal and the bad behaviors that are a result of people going through those experiences, we've been doing that. The state has offered us $80,000 more for a program that costs about $668,000 a year. So the state will be coming up with a total of $437,000 of that amount. The rest of it comes from county funds. And that's an adjustment of about $80,000 that the state is picking up. Our next agreement is with Columbia Land Trust to provide funds for supporting noxious weed control with our noxious weed board program. That's on land that they control on Abernathy Creek. Columbia Land Trust is doing a lot of salmon restoration work on the lower stretches of Abernathy Creek. So noxious weed control is pretty important. And that's about a $3,300 grant that agency is providing to the noxious weed control folks. We've also received correspondence from FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, just basically letting us know that they're beginning a review process on comments and progress reports on what the utilities are doing with the dams, with the recreation areas, with the fulfillment of the requirements of the federal licenses that allow the dams on the Lewis River to operate. And then last but not least, we have received a notification that the auditor's office has paid a little over $9 million in various claims last year, including payroll. Any questions that we can answer for you? I see staff is here. Are there any corrections? Did I get everything okay? All right. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm curious on the fourth item. If prisoners in the jail don't have access to a doctor, how do you know what drugs are on for the opioid extension?
Yeah, I think this may be a very good time to have.
Sure.
Because it's actually an interesting, it's good to go through the whole ideology kind of, yeah.
Bryn Fox, I'm the Director of Corrections. This is Captain Chris Moses. So this program, it's referred to two different ways, medically assisted treatment or what's MOUD?
Medication for opiate use disorder.
It's the same thing. So we are required by law to provide this program to the inmates. So basically in a jail, we're supposed to provide community standard of care. So if they were going to get that care in the community, then we're to provide that in the jail. And when people come into jail and they're on Medicaid, that coverage stops when they walk in the door. So we're required, the county picks up the cost for any kind of medical treatment for people in jail. So when they come to jail, an RN does a full medical assessment to determine if they have a drug use disorder. They also conduct a UA if the inmate agrees to it, so we can determine what sort of drugs they're on to safely detox them and treat the opioid use disorder if it exists.
So if I can interject, so you keep them high until you let them out on the street again. And I know that's not what you're saying, but that's, so I go into the jail, I'm an addict.
Mhm.
You try to keep me as an addict?
If there's determined to be an opioid use disorder, they can qualify for medication, which is what this funds
Right.
to. And then we connect them as they leave the facility with treatment in the community. So the goal is to keep them from using illegal drugs upon release.
I think that's kind of the important part. Once they're exiting the jail, they're still in the hands of the medical.
The treatment community.
Yeah, treatment community.
Okay, so I just, for clarification, if they're on opioids and they're going through withdrawal and you establish through a UA that they're on, I don't know, OxyContin, whatever, basically this allows you to continue giving them OxyContin?
No. This is a completely different category of drugs. It's commonly referred to as Suboxone, typically, or Suboxone. So it's not, we wouldn't continue giving them the drugs they're taking in the community. This is a drug specifically to treat opioid use disorder.
So you're gonna try and detox them and get them off the drugs?
So one of the
And-
challenges is a lot of the people that are in jail aren't in jail very long, but without this assistance, they go into withdrawal and.
Right.
Okay. So and the whole idea is they're on treatment, but if they go to jail, that stops. And especially if they're on Medicaid, the funding stops because Medicaid doesn't, Medicaid is for people who don't have resources. Well, if you're in the custody of the county, we have the resources, the law says. So we want to keep them on this medically assisted treatment that's helping to get them, under control and at an appropriate level, a safe level, rather than going through the withdrawal.
So this is aimed at keeping people on the program that they were on before they went into jail. And assuming that if they're not, they're going through withdrawal and they're not on Medicaid when they go into jail, I assume that somehow, we're still trying to detox them.
Well.
Or either,
job
if
is
they're
to-
going through withdrawal from illegal drugs on the street, what do we do for those people who don't have a Medicaid issue?
They would qualify for Medicaid in the street. So if they wanted to withdraw or go through withdrawal, I think there are places in the community to do that. And if they weren't going to actually go through withdrawal, they would qualify for this treatment in the community. There's multiple places to get medically assisted treatment throughout the community.
Okay.
So they don't necessarily have to be on a program. They're apprehended, they're in jail, you determine that they are addicts, and then you put them on the Suboxone.
We can start them, yes.
If they want, and that's a choice, if they're not on it already.
We can continue it and we can start it. And obviously they have the choice not to as well.
And they can refuse the Suboxone.
That's correct.
They can refuse everything, right?
That's correct.
But you will not offer them the opioids. In other words, they cannot demand to be kept high,
That is correct.
right?
Thank you.
It's quite a confusing thing.
It is.
And so.
Withdrawal should be under medical observation in the appropriate facility. Jail is not the place to go through withdrawal.
It's not, but we typically deal with that. Historically, there was a thought that opioid withdrawal was not dangerous. That has been proven incorrect over time, that it can be a very dangerous detox, typically with dehydration. So using these drugs helps make that a safer detox. The goal isn't comfort, the goal is safety.
Does this also handle alcohol addiction or other drugs?
Alcohol is a component of this as well.
And for alcohol, how do they treat that? Not with Suboxone, or does that also help?
There's a separate drug, and I couldn't tell you what it is, but
Yeah.
it's a that's a very serious detox, as well as benzo detox.
So as an ordinary citizen, if I'm incarcerated for some reason and I'm on a simple drug, lisinopril for blood pressure, what do you do for me?
We'll continue the medications. So our medical staff will connect with whoever your medical provider is to confirm that's the medication you're on, and then we will start that medication and continue it.
So anybody that comes in that are under medication of some sort, you assess that and continue that for that period of time?
As the doctors deem appropriate. So our doctors make an independent decision. So if someone comes in and they're on, copious amounts of I don't know, like a oxy would be a good one. So if they're coming in with a lot of that as a prescription, our doctors are typically not going to continue that. But, heart medication, any of that, insulin, anything they need to stay alive, we're definitely going to continue, as well as psych meds.
And for those who go to jail but have private insurance, if private insurance gets billed, or do we?
That would happen
Yeah, okay.
if that happened.
Yeah,
If
that
someone had
happened, yeah.
insurance,
So
yes,
Not, yeah.
that would be how it should work, but it is very, very rare that someone would come in that has private insurance.
And when you have your initial contact with your guests, they haven't been sentenced yet. They're waiting to be booked.
Right.
So it's over a weekend or overnight or a short period of time, or depending on how long it takes for bail to be posted.
Mhm.
So you're talking about short stays where that detox can be fairly, fairly critical. I mean, it happens. We're not talking about somebody who's been 10 days or 15 days in sentence.
Correct.
For most of the folks that you have to deal with.
Right. Our
a
average
lot
length
of-
of stay is around 14 days, but that's driven by the very short stays and the
Mhm.
long stays.
Mhm.
So there are people who are on a maintenance drug for pain. Sometimes it's OxyContin, sometimes it's Vicodin. That is probably reasonable to continue into jail. Are you allowed to do that?
There's no medication that's a no in a jail. There are certain ones that are heavily sought after for comfort typically, or maybe are overprescribed in the community, that are looked at more closely by the doctors in jails, but there's no medication that's just an absolute no.
And all the medication is in the hands of the dispensary. In other words, you don't hand me a jar of pills. and
Right.
Say.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't keep any medications on them, not even an inhaler. We have
Yeah.
to keep track of all of it.
Good morning. I have a question. Do they get weaned off of what they were addicted to with the Suboxone? Is it like they're given less and less to be eventually come clean of it?
That's what I understand. I think that's the goal with any opioid use disorder medication. Methadone would be what people previously were probably most aware of. But I believe the goal with Suboxone in the community would be to taper off eventually, but we don't have people long enough for that to be the case. We're just trying to get them safely on it and into the community so that they're not seeking illegal drugs upon release.
Okay, I have mixed feelings only because I was in a federally funded program and we had members who were accepted for their 11-month term of service, and the few that we had on, I think it might have been methadone, they didn't do well. They did not complete their term of service. Their behaviors expressed like they were still on something, and it was really a shame because they didn't take that weaning off that addiction seriously. So that's the thing that I would be concerned about. Is it really helping them when it's not getting to the root of the problem along with taking that medication? Because we certainly don't want them to suddenly die from withdrawal.
If they are not cooperating with the program in custody, we do remove them from the program. So if they're diverting or not showing that they're not serious about it, we have a process to remove them from the MAT program.
Thank you.
I think it's been a discussion over the years, what's the proper approach? And we have, I think, a fair amount of uncertainty on each side, and it's all individual, but we live in a check-the-box world.
Correct. There's an RCW that was passed by the state that requires us to do this,
Yeah.
as well as a pretty significant lawsuit out of, from the ACLU in Whatcom County.
Could you clarify, is the purpose of this program to help people who would go into withdrawal while they're in the jail and you're just helping them through that detox process? Or is it to help them get into a program that's going to help them wean off of the drugs after they get out of jail?
It's both.
So do we have a tracking mechanism that says, when you get out of jail, we're going to send you to this provider and rehab center and that type of thing?
Yes. And you can speak to that.
Yes, when they get out, they have a same day appointment. If it's a weekend or holiday, we'll give them enough Suboxone to get through that time period. And then they're set up with a community provider. Obviously, when they leave the jail, we have no control on whether or not they show up, but that's our goal.
Do we have a way of tracking what that success rate is?
We don't, because it's, you want to answer that?
Well, once they leave, we don't have the right to their medical records. So
we're
once they go to treatment in the community, once they leave our doors, we don't have the right to their medical information because of HIPAA. So that makes that tracking into the community complicated. We looked into that on the front end when we started this and found it a pretty high hurdle.
So I understand you guys are enforcing the law, and I'm not,
Right.
I don't want this to seem like we're coming down on you. But so we're starting a program that we really have no way of knowing whether or not it's being completed and or that they're following through.
We started this program in, well, we started early, maybe 2020, 2019. So as I stated, we're required by state law to do it and required by lawsuits to do it. But to answer your question, we're taking care of them while they're in custody, and we're trying our best to connect them with resources when they get out. We don't have very much control or any control over what happens when they get out, but our, two-prong: one, we want to detox them safely, not have bad outcomes that lead to bad liability for the county. And two, we're required to do this. We're required to try to get them connected with this treatment so that they continue when they get out of custody.
How much flexibility do you have with regards to certain variables within the program while you're implementing it in the jail? And what I mean by that is my experience has been, unless they voluntarily go into a program like that, they're not going to stop. There has to be a reason or a motivating factor in their life that pushes them to do that on their own. When they're in jail, they're not doing that on their own. It's something that we're putting on them in the process. So is there some sort of, can we add to the program, maybe consulting with them, talking with them about wanting to get off of drugs? Because if we're just putting them into this situation and then we just let them back out, it seems to me we're just babysitting them during the interim. We're giving them what they need, and then they're back into society, and you'll probably see them again in the near future.
Sure. We don't require them to do it, so it is voluntary. We don't have the right to medicate anybody in jail for any reason without a court order. We are having groups, or treatment should be a component. We in the past have had groups when COVID and all the things that have happened kind of pushed that by the wayside. We met with Core Health recently to partner with them on a few things. They inquired about bringing some groups back in. So yes, that should be a component. That works better in a prison setting because of length of stay, but it is something that we should and are working on providing.
Hold on. Along those lines, my impression is that you will have people in jail for longer than 2 weeks. You might have somebody who'll be there up to a year.
Mhm.
Is that a different category than those that come in and out quickly?
Well, when someone comes in and out quickly, the odds of us really getting them on this program and connected is slim. I mean, we need at least probably 2 weeks to do that.
Right.
So we're, for the short stay, we're just getting that detox done safely and then.
Oh, I understand that. I'm asking, is there, so I come in and my stay is indeterminate, but then I'm convicted and I'm going to be there for another 9 months. And I'm on Suboxone the whole time,
Yes,
unless I ask you to taper me off, ask for your help, and you're happy to do that.
right. Or if they don't follow the program.
Yeah. And then am I ever in your jail for a couple of months and then I go on probation or on some kind of a parole?
Yes.
Is that not a mechanism by which we can actually be a little more invasive in what they're doing? They have to go to get UAs and all that kind of stuff. So we do have the data of the universe. We at least have a
Right.
view of this much. But I think your question is completely appropriate that many programs, I think there's no desire to get solid metrics, solid data. It just shows that we're trying really hard, but we're not hitting the right formulation or solution. We know that because if we just step back and we take a look at how successful we are just by the numbers in the society, do we have a drug problem or not? And the answer is, getting worse every day kind of thing. And the same thing for education. We pour a bunch of money in it and we're not getting very much. Yet everybody brags about their statistics, but they're very false and misleading.
The
So
other piece that made the statistics on this difficult is that we started a full expansion of this in early 2020. And so then then COVID hit. So a lot of people got out of jail that would have normally been in jail, and the Blake decision happened. So we probably would have had some good before and after to look at, but because those things happened in the middle, it would be difficult we just don't have that data anymore because it doesn't exist in the same way, which is unfortunate.
Yeah. To Commissioner Mortensen's point with regard to the probation, at what point in the process is drug court involved? When do you involve them? Obviously, the felony has to be involving drugs, but are you guys involved in that with regards to helping them rehab out of the stuff that they're on?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So during the probationary or when they're in jail,
Mhm.
if it involved drugs,
Mhm.
when does the drug court option get involved or offered to them?
Typically, that's done with their defense attorney. So the defense attorneys,
So it could
Take the
be
lead.
a month or 3 months or whatever.
Right.
Okay.
yep, we're not heavily involved in that, and we help connect them through our online request system. But the connection from the inmate to drug court entry is typically done at the defense attorney level.
Are you guys involved in any of that once they go into that program? I mean, if you're giving them the medication that you're giving them and they go into that program, are you guys still involved in that after that point?
No, not unless they are sanctioned and come back to jail.
So you're
So remember,
only,
the effectiveness of drug court is you don't go to jail if you
Right.
do the treatment. So you'll interact with potential drug court clients during that. We're waiting for booking, you're waiting for the charges, but once it's determined that they qualify, and the prosecutor has to decide if they qualify for drug court program, then they're out of jail and unless they misbehave.
it would seem to me that one of the things that would help enhance the drug court program and the program you guys are involved in is if there was some sort of communication or collaboration between the two of you with what's going on with that inmate along the way. And I don't know if HIPAA is involved or not, but it just seems if we're going to take county resources to help these people at point A, it would seem to me that it would make sense that we followed that through point B, C, and D also to make sure that that we're getting the best or the optimal result that we could hope for in that situation. Have some sort of collaboration between those organizations that are involved in it.
And we do collaborate with them kind of at their request. So, drug courts run by them,
Yeah.
but they certainly keep an eye on people that are in custody that are on their program, and we'll send them incident reports. We will communicate with them if we know the drug court client's incarcerated and not doing what they should be doing in our facility. So they're pretty aware of who's in jail and, which one of their clients who we have of theirs.
Yeah. Thank you.
Again, that's a very pertinent question, and that it applies across the board on the welfare system. We have so many welfare agencies, and trying to keep track, continuity. Yeah. Frequent flyers, that's a concept you've heard before. Do you see frequent flyers that are involved with MAT as inmates? We saw you last month. We see you again and again.
I would say that's very typical of the drug users in our community, to see people again and again. Yes, I believe, I haven't ran our numbers in a while, but it's pretty typical to have 70% recidivism. So 70% of the people that walk in our door, we've seen before.
So that's a partial answer to your question. Yes, just off the cuff.
Yeah.
So let me continue with this line more in a generic fashion. The piece of incarceration is normally only a small part of a legal or judicial process. So there is a continuation that we are still society involved in, whether it's the prosecutor's decision, the judicial system, and the legal representation, whether it's private or public representation. So I would presume that the discussion should not end as they walk out the jail. There should be a record saying, were they cooperative? What was the discussion? Giving the judicial system and the rest of the system and the prosecutor defender some idea of how to do best for the individual or the situation and society. So I'm just continuing. We're doing the same thing with homeless housing, everything else. When they walk out the door, well, they supposedly have housing, but that's not by any means the end of the situation. The train continues for a long time to try to get to a success. And see, representing society, we'd like to know how we get to successes and even be able to celebrate those, but we don't find many.
You also would like to know how much you're paying for that success.
Absolutely. What is the cost to society for us in doing that? And again, we're getting this, oh, well, the city of Longview isn't having to pay for this. We're getting grants, we're getting all these federal funds. We are still all paying the bill.
Well, again, one of the reasons I think this makes sense, if you think of it as an insurance policy against the liability claims when things go bad, and that protects the taxpayers from having to make those payouts. And because we have to remember, jail is not a drug treatment center, but it deals with people who have problems with drugs. And so keep them safe while we have them on these short periods of time. The longer periods of time, yeah, there's more possibility to work with them.
I heard you reference 70% recidivism, but roughly out of every, 100 people that come visit you, what's the percentage of people that are in trouble that need this program? It's obviously, I don't think it's going to be 100% of them, but it's going to be a high percentage, I imagine.
Yeah, it's definitely a high percentage.
We typically will have like 15 people detoxing at a time. That's a pretty typical number. So at some point in the detox process, and I believe the last time we looked at the numbers on how many people were off of detox, but on this program, around 40 people out of 200.
A thing along those lines, approximately 75% of the general fund gets spent on law and order, allowing justice. And then at one point, several years ago, I asked Marin what just off the cuff what she thought the percentage of drug-related inmates she had, and it was a pretty high number out there. What,
I would say at least 80% of the people coming in are on something. It's pretty
that should be,
atypical for someone to come in clean and sober.
Okay,
that is a
80%.
staggering number. And
Yeah,
That's why you hear me say the war on drugs has been a failure.
it,
The cost is enormous at every level.
it leaves me wondering, I guess, two things. One is at some point, somebody coming into the jail for whatever reason, who does an evaluation for mental health requirements versus drug addiction problems? How do you sort that out? I've seen a few mental health issues that walking the street that I have no idea if they're supposed to be on medication that they're not on, if they are on medication that just isn't helping them. I mean, I don't know, how do you break those things down when somebody's walking through the door that they came in and the officer suspected it was a drug problem, but it's actually mental health?
Right. That I think that's a big challenge for us to know and to separate out mental health and substance abuse. And which is what, and sometimes we know a lot of these people, so we know that after a period of time, this person detoxes, they still have mental health issues, but they're not going to be quite as bad as they were when they came in. But we get people that we've never seen before, and we don't know which one, and it's kind of a wait and see. We have mental health counselors, but often if they come in and they seem very, very out of it, we're going to see it after a week or so. Is that mental health? Was that drugs? Or was it both?
How much of that can you sort out with a UA?
Well, I mean, that'll tell us if they're on drugs, but we won't necessarily know about the mental health aspect until we get the drugs out of their system. But we also talk to other facilities. Our medical department is able to access their pharmaceutical records to see, have they been on psych meds in the community or in other communities? How long has it been since they've been compliant with those? So we're pulling resources to try to put together a picture on inmates that we don't know. And just it is a little bit of a mystery. Like you said, we don't always know which is what either. And often it's both.
The thing about mental health, it's often defined in practice with the perspective on society. Like cannibalism, we find horrible, and somebody would be sick in the head to be a cannibal. Yet we know there have been cannibal societies, and that was the norm. I think we have to be very careful, and there's no way the jail can figure out anything of that nature. I'm not sure even the psychiatrists can, but they keep employed because they say they can.
Okay. Amazing.
So forgive me, I came in later in the discussion. So my question is, when someone is addicted to drugs and you're going to help them, is the only thing that you give them Suboxone?
No.
There's
We're-
other drugs.
We're required to offer all of them, I believe. So methadone, Vivitrol, Suboxone, so whatever is medically indicated. But the most common is Suboxone.
Okay. I see Suboxone as a big problem
Mhm.
because they get addicted to that as well. And I served on a board of a transitional housing facility in this area, and we wouldn't take people on Suboxone because they're not totally drug-free. So it is considered a drug, and you're exchanging one for another, is my view. So I see a problem with that.
I'm sorry,
Big issue.
you do or don't see a problem with that?
I do see a problem with that.
So
You're
you're gonna take away
exchanging one drug for another.
You're gonna take away my morning cup of coffee? Oh,
I'm sorry,
please.
we all have our vices, but
Well, the challenge is the jail is not the area to try to get people off of drugs. We don't have them long enough, for the most part, we don't have them long enough. So we need to keep them at least safe enough so they don't die on us. And it gets right down to that. That's been the problem. That's been a huge threat. So hopefully with the medications, if it's done appropriately and properly once they leave, and then we try to get them transitioned to that, then that can happen, but it takes a lot longer
Yeah.
than
I
even the
under-
2 weeks. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
much more longer term thing. But
I understand
jail's not
that.
the place for drug treatment. And
Yes, I agree. But I just wanted to say, I believe that Suboxone is a big issue. So, thank you.
So I don't see any hands up. Any other comments? I don't think we have a motion yet.
yeah,
You did
Oh,
make the
did
motion?
we?
No, I don't think
I
so.
went through it, didn't I? Well, then I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented and discussed.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the consent agenda. We've talked about it aplenty. I see one Q&A. Let's see if that's germane. And I see nothing. I call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion does pass. Huh. That's curious on my sheet. Anyhow, we do have motion items. 2 motion items. The first motion item is the bid award to Lakeside Industries, and we have the 2023 County Engineer of the Year, 2022, 2021,
2020.
2020.
Mhm.
You know, we have so much fun that time just flies by.
Yes, it does.
Well, what's happened to the other 3 years? What's going on? You slacking off?
That must be it.
Okay.
We're not getting anything accomplished for you guys anymore. Good morning, Susan Eugenius, County Engineer. So I have in front of you today the bid award to Lakeside Industries for the 2024 countywide pavement overlay project in the amount of $2,121,010. This is our annual program. We received 2 bids, Lakeside and Granite, and we will be overlaying approximately 15.4 lane miles.
Did you say 50 or 15?
15.
15. Wow.
So an interesting thing is if you notice the authority to approve change orders up to 10%, but not exceeding $25,000. 10% of 2 million is a little more than 25,000.
Yes, but
So
this
that's a
is,
standard
that's-
boilerplate.
yes, that's the standard boilerplate from the purchasing policy.
Okay. It just confuses small minds. Any questions?
So one of the other items in the last couple of months of the consent agenda was soliciting bids to supply the rock and gravel for asphalting the roads. And we give the awards to several different providers. And so that secures the material. Is that restricted to county forces using those materials for repairs and maintenance?
Yes, those are the bidders that the providers we can go to as county when the county forces are doing jobs. It provides us shoulder rock, cold mix and hot mix to do pothole repairs. We do have a small paving machine that we do small repairs that are not included in this contract. Those are the items that those are used for. So this is the labor materials, the entire contract.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So recently I've seen a tool called the Zipper.
Yes.
Is that of any interest to us?
So I know that the
You'll
at
define for
least,
them the zipper.
the zipper is, it peels back the asphalt for repairs. It's a form of grinder. So I know one of our road supervisors went or was going to that presentation, and I had not heard, he may have talked about it with Mike Moss, Public Works Director, if that's something that we're going to request to pursue.
My guess it's fairly expensive machine.
That is my guess.
And you probably have an idea what it does. It's kind of like your street bed wasn't set properly. And so it actually it doesn't just put a hot melt on top. It just grinds up a bunch of stuff and gets in deeper, and you redo the bed in a narrow area. Is that something you would typically desire to do but don't do because it's too expensive?
We really haven't looked at that through most of our locations. We are, so the first portion of the Dike Road project that we did down in Woodland, we ground up, the contractor ground up the pavement and then mixed cement into the base to give us a stabler base, and then repaved it, which is the method that we're going to use for the second portion of that project. So we have never looked at it on a small scale, just on some larger projects.
And I assume it worked out, and that's why you're doing it again.
Yes, the portion that we did has maintained its stability.
That's on the Dike Road?
Yes, Dike Road south of Wayland.
Okay, thank you.
So for a really expensive piece of equipment like we talked about, the advantage for acquiring it comes when you've got more urban density roads, a lot of traffic. And at a certain point in time, as our urban areas do grow, you know, the subdivisions that are going in off of Hall Road, for example, or the developments in Lexington, quite a few new constructions. And, you know, you get to that certain point where you need more appropriate equipment to do urban area road maintenance, I'm assuming. And it's a matter of, are we there yet? And I think that's what your staff is trying to decide. Does it justify?
Yes.
Well, it's a complicated formula because among other things, there's a cost of, does it speed up the repair so you don't have to interfere with traffic? And that's something government typically doesn't do very well, is assess the damage it does to the commerce, if you will. And we do know the less disturbance you have, the better solution it is, but we don't quantify it. And it may justify an expensive piece of equipment. That's part of my favorite speech of what if the Lewis and Clark Bridge were not operable? What is that to the economy of the state? And I think it's a nasty number.
Well, we would probably revert back to the old fashioned ferries that used to run between Rainier and Longview back in the early days, but that's, the capacity is much
We go
less.
back to the log rafts.
Well, maybe not the log rafts, but
So-
however, good discussion doesn't have anything to do with the issue because Lakeside Industry is taking care of all the equipment stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm seeking a little more description of what the $2.1 million countywide pavement overlay project entails. Does that include the preparation of the asphalt, preparation, the placement, the materials, the equipment and everything? Is that a complete project, or is this only part of the asphalt overlay or placement project?
So this is the complete project minus the crack sealing. So this
what?
crack sealing, some of the locations, our road crew will go through and seal up some of the cracks that are in the pavement or dig out any bad spots. So if there's a rough spot, they'll dig it out and repair it prior to this coming through. On this particular project this year, so up on Barnes Drive by the Space Age fueling. If anybody's driven up there, we apologize about how horrible the pavement has gone. We are including grinding of that pavement as part of this project. So they'll bring a machine out, grind it down 2 to 4 inches, depending on the location, and then they will come in and asphalt over it. So Lakeside is providing the grinding, all of the labor for the traffic control. They will, the pavement will be washed, the tack coat will be applied, and then they will put the hot mix down.
And they roll it the whole process.
They roll it the whole process.
Okay, so therefore, that would be my question. Some would crack seal, some you would need to grind asphalt out to prevent the cracks from projecting on up through in a very short time.
Yes,
And that's a county engineering decisions.
yes,
Okay, and putting a specification together for a project.
yes. In this project, it's included, the specifications include the grinding.
Okay, thank you.
We ready for motion? Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the bid award to Lakeside Industries for the 2024 countywide pavement overlay project as presented by staff.
We have a motion to approve the bid award to Lakeside Industries as has been discussed. I see no other hands. No other comments. I call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion does pass.
Thank you. So the next item I have on the agenda is the contract execution with Compass Construction for the Slide Creek Road realignment project in the total amount of $278,901.82. Slide Creek Road is out on the west end of the county. This will realign the road that is sliding into Slide Creek away from the creek. We will be shutting down the road for approximately 40 working days. So that's 8 weeks. It will be noticed in the paper prior to doing that. And we have talked to, and the one driveway within the project limits access will be maintained for the entire project.
One of the things you pointed out to us in the workshop was that the bid is much lower than other highway repair projects because of that very feature. Most of the time, we have to have traffic control crews, and that's very labor intensive. So that adds to the cost, and that's not happening. Fortunately, Slide Creek is accessible from both sides, and that facilitates the option of going a little bit less expensive, so the money goes more to the repairs rather than the labor traffic control costs.
I take it Slide Creek is eponymously named. Any questions? I see no questions.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we award a contract to Compass Construction Northwest for the Slide Creek Road realignment project as described by staff.
We have a motion on the floor to approve the contract with Compass Construction. I see no other comment requests. Let's vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye. The motion does pass. And that's the end of the motion items. Let me quickly see chairman updates. I'll leave those for when the real chairman comes back. And for today, let me advertise the June 5th Wednesday meeting. That would be tomorrow, is a 2024 budget amendment review. Not trying to be anything, but it's probably useful, but not too entertaining. On the 12th, that's a
Mr.
week-
Chairman, are you suggesting it could be to some people boring?
Did I say that? On the 12th, we have something that I'm particularly interested in is the animal control code and then the quarterly ARPA updates. Those should be interesting. We've recently changed the way we do animal control in the county, and I'm just anxious to hear how that has turned out, and I'm assuming that's what we'll hear there. And a week after that is the Juneteenth holiday, so that is canceled. And beyond that, well, actually, I should advertise, maybe my colleague will advertise the June 26th one.
You know, Cowlitz County is part of the Lower Columbia Fish Recovery Board, which is charged by the state government with overseeing a variety of grants to restore fish runs to a healthier level for the wild fish. And one of the, and I represent the county on that, and I've been on that board for almost 15 years now. I served as the city's representative before I became a county commissioner. At any rate, one of the more interesting and frustrating things is through the endangered species process, it was determined that hatchery fish, while genetically exactly like the wild fish, cannot be treated as a replacement for the wild fish runs. So in fact, they say that the hatchery fish actually outcompete the wild fish. So you've noticed we have problems with sea lions eating salmon, and that's, if you talk to fishermen, they know that's a frustrating thing. The food is there for them, but it's mostly the hatchery fish and other more abundant fish. So there are lots of different strategies that are used to help restore fish runs. And while across the state, the numbers are not very encouraging, in the Lower Columbia region, we are beginning to see the progress being made with the numbers beginning to inch upward. It is a long process because a generation of fish is 4 to 7 years. And so it does take time to monitor that. We do have a citizen representative that sits on the board, a citizen from each county. And our county citizen is Robert Sudar, who used to be on our planning commission, but he is a commercial fish broker and very much involved with the fishing industry and the fishing, all the issues of the fishing thing. So we have invited him to come and share with us kind of an update, a status report on the state of salmon recovery in the Lower Columbia. And so hope, you know, and he's well recognized as an expert in the field. So I'm excited to have him come and share with those who might be interested in an update on
He
where
is
we
an
are.
impressive speaker, and his command of the subject will be evident.
Mhm. Yep.
How is your proposal to bring orcas up into the Columbia to help the problem?
Well, since the orcas are not thriving in Puget Sound, there aren't very many to pick from to try to encourage up. But they do, you know, they do travel off the coast of Oregon and Washington, and they love Chinook salmon. So while we're trying to encourage an increase in the run of wild salmon, the governor is increasing the amount of hatchery fish as the food stock for the orcas. So again, it's one of those cases where the government is contradicting itself at the same time, trying to save the orcas, trying to save the wild salmon. And it is, you just have to scratch your head on how
Orcas
they do
eat
it.
sea lions, don't they?
Huh?
Orcas eat sea lions, don't they? That's what I had in mind.
Yeah. Those fat, sassy sea lions are a bit too big. They'll go after the infants, the small ones, I think. You know,
That's a start.
Yeah. But they prefer Chinook.
All right, this point, let me, before we start the citizen comments, our auditor may have want to talk to us for a moment about election type issues. You're on, Carolyn.
Well, thank you and good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to give just a really brief public service announcement. Cowlitz County is printing a primary local voters pamphlet as required by statute, but our pamphlet will not include state candidates. This is not an easy decision, so I wanted to share the reasoning behind it. The state manages their own candidate filings. They set the rules for their candidate statements and photos, and they also collect and manage those submissions. And unfortunately, they take an extraordinary amount of time to review and approve those candidate submissions, and it doesn't give us enough time to include them in our pamphlet. In fact, our deadline for the print-ready pages is today, and the state has yet to approve their submissions. So it was really impossible. Currently, the state is not required to print a pamphlet yet. We're hoping to make that a legislative change because this truly is a service to the public that we would like to see. And in the general election, voters will see both state and local candidates because the state does print their portion of their candidates and then they combine and print with our pamphlet. So that's why you're seeing both in a general election. But it's difficult not to include them. So I'm trying to get the word out there. We will be also issuing press releases on the subject. And most difficult, I think, is our somewhat local state candidates. So when not all state candidates are truly state candidates, our state reps, 19th and 20th legislative district reps, they seem very local, but they are not local candidates. So this is not an easy decision.
So so for the primary, we will have the local ballot, the local pamphlet as you've defined.
Yes, state candidates can be found in the online voters guide, but they will not be included in our printed local voters pamphlet that's mailed to every household.
Carolyn, will you be sharing that information in that pamphlet?
Yes, I'm putting a notice. Yep, front page of the pamphlet. It's going to have a notice, find state candidates and guide people where to go.
Thank you.
We have someone at the microphone.
Will there be a link on your webpage to get to the state candidates?
Yes, we always have that link on our webpage, but honestly, people prefer the printed guide. I prefer it myself, but that is always on our webpage for all elections. But in this particular case, in the primary, we will go above and beyond. We'll have a laptop available for those that are lacking online access. We'll assist anybody that wants to come in and view the guide online if they don't have access, but we just can't get them included into the pamphlet.
And you mail the guide out to all registered voters?
Yes, we mail the printed pamphlet out to every household, not registered voters. The difference being that the voter pamphlet is supposed to serve as a notice to those saying, hey, there's an election coming up. If you're not registered, be looking for your ballot. If you're not registered or there's a problem with your registration, now's the time to contact us. So it's mailed to every household, not to every registered voter.
To every household in the county or to every household that has a registered, at least one registered voter?
Every household in the county. So even those that don't have registered voters, they'll get a local voters pamphlet.
And that includes post office boxes?
Yes. And there's always additional copies available at local post offices and our office.
and the Democratic and Republican headquarters?
Oh, yeah, definitely. We don't have an address yet for the Democratic Party. Typically, they only host a headquarters in a presidential year, but we'll definitely bring some over to the Republican headquarters. And as soon as we have an address for the Democrats, we'll get them some as well.
Approximately what number of addresses is, how many copies are going out in the mail?
You know, that's a good question. If I had to guess, I would say roughly 30,000, but I'd have to follow up with you and look at actual print numbers. I don't have that information off the top of my head.
Okay.
Well, I have one other update. If you're a candidate, a local candidate, we emailed proof submissions to each candidate, giving them a little bit of time to review and approve what their page in the local voter pamphlet will look like. And there's a really quick deadline, a turnaround on that. Since our print deadline is today at 5, we're giving candidates until noon today to approve those. That's not an opportunity to make adjustments or revisions. That's just an opportunity to look it over and alert us if there's a mistake or a typo in your contact information or something like that.
Yeah, in the
Yeah.
past, there have been some mistakes that have driven you crazy, as I recall.
And that was with the state. Yeah, unfortunately, we did attempt to print state candidates in the 2022 primary. We printed candidate statements and photos, even though they were not yet approved by the Secretary of State's office, because we wouldn't have gotten it to the printer in time. But we had 2 days. If I remember correctly, it was over 70 pages long, and we had 2 days to put that together. And we just simply do not have the resources to do that. And the statements and photos were not approved. So it was a kind of a ripe opportunity to challenge us, right? The state sets their rules, not us. So if the state later deemed that a candidate statement was disqualified due to not meeting their rules, we would have already printed it in the pamphlet. No easy path forward in this situation.
We have a gentleman at the
And what is your
microphone.
mailing date of those pamphlets?
So the pamphlets, they give us a big window, but the pamphlets are going to go out anytime between mid-July and the last week of July. We really like to time that about 1 week prior to ballots being mailed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So it's open lines Tuesday.
Comments now?
Yes, that's really what I meant.
Open lines.
You understand, a hard C is harder for me to say than a soft L.
Okay. We see that the city of Longview is having a homeless workshop on Thursday at 6 o'clock. I'm sure that that'll have a big bearing upon the county in working with your homeless program. So I'm hoping that there will be participation, et cetera, in preparation so that we can have an integrated program for the city of Longview as well as the county.
Do you have any expectations or any idea what will be accomplished there, or?
Well, my first question to the city of Longview would they please, they're working on budget for this year. Budget for this year should work on budget for last year. They should have a true accounting of the tally of what the homeless program, all the homeless program in the city of Longview cost, not just the citizens of Longview, but through all the grants and everything else, the participation by the workshops, not workshops, by the city crews, et cetera, so that the citizens can have an assessment of what the cost of this program is. unfortunately, we've not been getting very clear results out of what the program is doing. They say they'll give us a number of how many checked out of the camp program. And of course, and say that there's so many in permanent housing, but we also know that permanent housing is kind of a nomenclature. It's just move from one house to another. It does not give us the success of a program. So we, the citizens and you represent our county, certainly want to know what we are contributing to, because they're going to be coming back to you to use our money and ask for our money in supporting the program. So I'm hoping we're all integrated, because it is certainly a model, at least in positive form for our entire county, and it affects our entire county, what City of Longview does.
Mr. Chairman, do you expect the county to change its policy of putting document recording fees for affordable housing projects? I haven't heard any interest in making any changes.
I really haven't heard any discussion on it
Yeah.
either. That's kind of what I was asking. What's going on in
Yeah.
the wind?
They haven't used document recording fees so far, from what I understand.
Well, are they still working off of their own document recording fees? I think they voted to merge back in with the county on their own fees, or are they still taking their own document recording fees?
No, it's merged back into the county.
Okay, so we're merged together on that.
But they didn't use the document recording fees before. They got grants to cover the expenses and their own ARPA funds for construction. At least that's my understanding.
That is not to say they did not spend the money.
Mhm.
That is to say that they funded their programs with grants.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Key point being is that the meeting is finally getting back to not looking at the program, because of course you need to know what you're going to fund and budget for the upcoming year. The City of Longview signed a 2-year program with Salvation Army with the old council before the new council came in. So there's certainly some things already committed to, I'll say.
Yeah, that could be a long discussion.
Well, we're hoping it is. We're hoping it's not only long, but it's got some in-depth and it's got some metrics with it.
I appreciate your hope and agree with it. Other comments? I don't see anything else. So do we have a miscellaneous? No miscellaneous? Well, in that case, I think we're done for this meeting. This meeting is now adjourned. I thank everybody.
Thank you.